Friends, this morning we are finishing up our sermon series called That We May Be. And we are looking at the ways that we can be a courageous church, loving like Jesus, acting for justice, and united in hope. And hopefully by the time we get through with this series, you'll be able to repeat that over and over and over again. Because that is what we are called to be as part of the churches here in the Desert Southwest Conference of the United Methodist Church. This morning we heard a psalm that expressed the hope of the psalmist. And so today we're also going to hear part of Paul's letter to the Ephesians, where he talks about us being unified, being in unity with the Holy Spirit and in the Spirit's hope. So I'm reading from Ephesians chapter 4, beginning with the first verse. Therefore, as a prisoner for the Lord, I encourage you to live as people worthy of the call you received from God. Conduct yourselves with humility, gentleness, and patience. Accept each other with love, and make an effort to preserve the unity of the Spirit with the peace that ties you together. You are one body and one Spirit, just as God also called you in one hope. There is one Lord, one faith, one baptism, and one God and Father of all, who is over all, through all, and in all. May God add blessing to the reading, hearing, and understanding of these words. So over the last several weeks, we have been looking at our annual conference initiative for growth and vitality. And so far, we have considered what it means to be a courageous church that loves like Jesus and acts for justice. We've also asked you to be bold and courageous and to share with us your ideas about how we can be these things, a courageous church loving like Jesus and acting for justice. And if you do take a look at the posters over there, and I do hope that you will, these are the posters that have been created from you, from your ideas. And you've given us a lot of them. And in fact, this last Tuesday, we shared some of those ideas, the ones that we've collected so far, with our church council so that we can use them to set goals for the coming year. But until we finish this series, our work is not complete. We need to explore the final aspect of this initiative, and that is what it means to be united in hope. But you know, even then, even after we have explored that, our work will not be done. Because just like the church, this initiative is a living and breathing entity. It is meant to guide us into the future as God's courageous church. So what does it mean to be united in hope? Now, I have to admit, I don't find this phrase as easy to define as I have the other two. Not like loving like Jesus or acting for justice. Those are pretty self-explanatory. But we also know that the word united means joined together for a common purpose or by common feelings. And that hope is a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. But when we put the two together, I'm just not so sure that those two definitions really help us understand the essence of what it means to be united in hope. So I'm going to look at it from a little bit different angle, perhaps from a different perspective. We live in the United States of America. But are we truly united? Are we joined together for a common purpose or a feeling? I see a lot of heads out there shaking right now. Our country is struggling, especially right now, because we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. We don't all agree. And in fact, we can't even agree to disagree. And yet, I suspect most of us want the people in this country to come together, but only if they do based upon my beliefs and my values. There doesn't seem to be any room for differing opinions, and yet we are a country that is called to be united, but I'm afraid we are united in name only. Our church is in a denomination called the United Methodist Church. But are we truly united? Again, I see heads shaking. At our last general conference, tempers flared and sessions were so heated that many of the controversial issues had to be removed from discussion, postponed until a later date. And now there's talk that if these issues can't be resolved to everyone's satisfaction, that the United Methodist Church will break apart. Both sides of the main argument have threatened to pull away. And this my way or the highway attitude has kept us from being a truly united church. And then we have to factor in this idea, this notion of hope. Now, our bishop, in one of his videos that's posted on our conference website, says that hope really preaches. And you know, he's right. I think there's like 200 and some places in the Bible that bring up the word hope. And who doesn't want to hear about hope? Who doesn't want to have hope in their lives, especially when everything around us seems so hopeless? Hope is universal. It's a desire that something will happen. And some might even say that it's wishful thinking. But from a believer's perspective, hope is much more than that, much more than wishful thinking. It's an expression of confident expression, confident expectation, a firm assurance that is grounded in our faith. But I also think that within this context of being a courageous church, hope extends beyond the notion of expectation. It has to involve activity, just like I talked to the children about. It cannot merely be passive waiting. It's the difference between saying, I hope it doesn't rain today, and then sitting back and waiting to see what happens. No, the kind of hope that I'm talking about is when we say to ourselves, I have hope that we can change the world, and then doing something about it. That's the kind of hope I think we are called by God to have. That's the kind of hope that Jesus practiced. Do you remember the story in John chapter 5 of the sick man who was lying near the healing pool in Bethesda? He'd been sick for 38 years. And when Jesus saw him lying there, he said to the man, "Do you want to be well?" Well, the man responded by saying, "I'm trying to get into the healing waters, but no one will help me." So Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat, and walk." And instantly the man was healed. Now, when Jesus saw that man lying by the pool called Bethesda, he didn't say to him, "Wow, that's really too bad that you're sick. I hope somebody comes along and helps you get into the pool, or I hope that you can get well on your own." No, Jesus took action. He gave the man hope for a better life by healing his affliction and making him whole. But what we also see in this chapter is that Jesus did not act alone. He worked in collaboration with God. Jesus says, after the man has been healed, he says, "I assure you that the Son cannot do anything by himself except what he sees the Father doing. Whatever the Father does, the Son does likewise. As the Father raises the dead and gives life, so too does the Son give life." Jesus makes it clear that he was not acting alone. He was working in unity with God. And that's what it means to be united in hope. Partnering with God and with each other. It means finding a common purpose, something that we can all get behind, something that we can do to work together and working together toward making positive change. It's making a difference, not just for us, but for others in the community and in the world, and doing so in a way that is united. The preamble of the United States Constitution says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." From the very beginning, this nation was created to be united. This nation was meant to be united behind the ideals of justice, order, and freedom. And as people of faith, we are also meant to be united behind the ideals set forth by our Creator, loving God and honoring each other, regardless of what your faith tradition is, whether it's Christian, Jewish, Muslim, or something else. We are meant to love God and honor each other, speak the truth, and do no harm. And as Christians, we are meant to be united behind the teachings of Jesus, loving our neighbors as ourselves, forgiving one another, and being forgiven. And as united Methodists, we are meant to be united behind our common purpose, to make disciples for Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Open minds, open hearts, and open doors. And as people of this church, of Faith United Methodist Church, we are meant to be united behind our common goals. People caring for people, focused on reaching out to all people who seek personal acceptance, who require sustaining assistance, and who yearn for a meaningful life purpose beyond themselves. And by the way, I did take that straight out of our mission statement. It is what we have agreed to be. When we unite behind a common goal, whether we're talking about the United States of America or being people of God, or being Christians, or being United Methodists, or being a part of this particular church, we are meant to unite behind that common goal. And we do so when we collaborate with each other, with other people in our community, and with other nations around the world. And when we do that, we can make a difference. Together we can change the world. But in order to be united, we also have to recognize that there are barriers to our success. And we can't forget what those barriers are, those roadblocks that we consciously or subconsciously throw in front of ourselves and damage our ability to be successful. They keep us from stepping out in faith and working to offer hope. During the Holy Huddles this past June at our annual conference, we identified a few of those barriers: fear, lack of trust, being divided in ways we were never meant to be, being politically correct, and avoiding certain topics of conversation that are considered taboo. These barriers and others like them cause us to withdraw into ourselves. They cause us to avoid healthy confrontation and conversation, and they keep us from experiencing the abundant life that God intends for us. God calls us to break down those barriers of fear, lack of trust, by taking action, by loving like Jesus and acting for justice. What's more, God calls us to break down the barriers that together, to do it together, united in hope. This past week, I attended what was supposed to have been a meeting of the 19 North Coalition, the Interfaith Council. There are about 6 or 7 churches that are involved in this Interfaith Council, but as it turned out, there were only 2 people who showed up. Shannon, our organizer, who is a pastor down here at Open Door Fellowship, and me. We were the only ones there. But we were blessed to have a guest with us. Her name was Carolyn Banger. She is the executive director of a new office here in this area called the Jewish Community Relations Office. Finally, we have someone who is not a Christian who is part of the Interfaith Council. I was so thrilled to meet her and to see that she wants to join our group. So there we were, a conservative, non-denominational Christian, a progressive United Methodist, and an Orthodox Jew. Sounds like the beginning of a bad joke, doesn't it? Yeah. All of us female engaging in conversation about the ways that we can collaborate to make the 19 North community a better place for everyone who lives and works in this community. We talked about the fact that we do have theological differences, but that doesn't matter because there are things that we can get behind as a community, things that we can do in order to change the world. It was an incredible example of the way in which God's people came together, united in hope. We came together behind a common purpose, and we actively engaged. We didn't passively share our wishful thinking. We came up with actions that we could accomplish in order to change this part of the community. We were identifying ways that we could bring hope to this community. Now that's what I call collaborative ministry, wouldn't you? That's what it means to be united in hope. So today, as we think about the ways that we can be united in hope, I'd like to hear from you, just as we've done in our previous Sundays during this particular sermon series. I've got a few questions that are going to come up on the board, up on the screen in just a few moments. And what I'd like you to do is take a few moments and jot down your responses to those questions, and then bring them forward, and we will place them here on the board. I'll move the board down so that you all can take a look at it. Here are the questions I would like you to answer. How can we, as the people of Faith United Methodist Church, be united in hope? In what ways can we collaborate with other faith communities and churches, both United Methodist and non-United Methodist, Christian and non-Christian, to actively bring hope to our troubled world? And what barriers do we face, and how can we tear them down? Francine is going to play a little bit here on the organ for us. Thank you for doing that. And let's take a few moments. You have Post-it notes in your bulletins. If you need a pen, raise your hand, and Mike will bring one to you. But jot down those ideas to those questions, those answers that you come up with. All right. Now, I know over the last several weeks I've asked you to really think a lot, and we've come up with some great ideas and a lot of them. And maybe your brains are a little tapped out right now, but that's okay. I want you to think about this. how can we be united in hope? What things can we do? How can we collaborate with the other faith communities, not only in this community, but throughout the world? What barriers do we face? And how can we tear them down? More Post-it notes, check with one of your neighbors, or we can get some more out in the office if we need them. That as we've been going through these ideas that y'all have come up with, some of them have really sparked some great ideas and discussion within the church council as well, and in the study group on Wednesday mornings. I have to say that some of them are things that I thought, whoa, I didn't think about that. You all have some great things going on in your heads. Let's get them out. Let's share them with each other. Look for ways united in hope. We're going to keep these posters up for the next several weeks, and I definitely would like you to consider, take some of those Post-it notes home, and as you think of things that we can do that can make a difference in this community and in the world, things that we can do to be a courageous church, loving like Jesus, acting for justice, and united in hope, bring them with you, put them up on these posters, and let's just keep the conversation going as long as we can. In his video posted on our conference website, our bishop said the following: God is calling us to be united. not only in the hope of the eternal life in Jesus Christ, but in the hope that we can grow and become much more vital because we are working together in concert with God's vision for us and moving in new and different ways in our communities. God is calling us, he went on, to be people of positive energy and hope as we move into the future. We are always better together than we are separately. You know, my friends, it is true that we live in an uncertain world. But I believe that God is calling us, God is calling this church to be united as a beacon of hope to the world in spite of all the uncertainty we face. And the way that we do that, my friends, is by being a courageous church, loving like Jesus, acting for justice, and being united in hope. Say it with me. Being a courageous church, loving like Jesus, acting for justice, united in hope. May we make it so. Amen.